Synthswap.io, a DEX on Base that is heavily underlooked, and for good reason. When a person actually looks at a decentralized exchange, normally they would go to a website like DeFi Llama and they would look at the total value locked, they would look at the volume that is being generated, and then they are interested to know more. So they will go on the website and potentially, hopefully, they will look at the security, aka audit reports, see if there are critical issues, if they were solved, etc. Study a bit the DEX, look at the team, look at the customer feedback, aka users using the platform, and then choose to put their liquidity in. And that's pretty much it. Sorry to interrupt you there, folks. I just want to quickly chime in and mention that we are currently working on a project called Numerical. It's DeFi as a service, meaning you'll get exposed to real DeFi protocols that generate real revenue, aka real yield, and you're gonna get a cut of this without doing the setup yourself. All you have to do is enter, claim, or withdraw. Very simple. So your capital is available at all times to take, and you can choose the option where to invest. More details in the description and in our community chat. Unfortunately, if you do your homework around Synthswap on that level, so everything I just described, you will be deterred and you will move away from the platform and you won't look back. Now here is in front of me the total value locked, and it has plummeted from a high of 2 mil, which is considerably decent for most DEXs. We're not talking about the big boys, we're talking about the average boys, to a measly 136k. And to add insult to injury, you would come here and you would look at all the protocols slash DEXs on base. If you rank them out overall by volume, Synthswap doesn't even make it to the top 32. And they not only show 32 DEXs or protocol, they show them all. And Synthswap doesn't exist there. Why? Because it could have potentially been labeled as mute or a null DEX at this point in time. However, here's the thing. If you are a liquidity provider, if you are somebody who wants to earn a big buck for whatever they provide, you have to do more. You have to look deeper versus whatever I just told you. And here is why Synthswap could still be, for me, one of the highest paying DEXs in terms of earnings at the end of the day. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Quickly though, I'm gonna switch over to their chart of their token. So they have a native asset called Synth. This is an asset that you can purchase and an asset that you can earn. They do have a version of that, vested version of that token as well, called XSynth. So if you are providing liquidity, you would earn both. All right, so but it's more weighted on the XSynth basically token, similar to how Camelot operates with Grail and XGrail. However, Camelot is heavily dependent on XGrail versus Synth, which has an almost 40 to 60% ratio. Camelot has 20 to 80%. However, so the performance of this Synth token is not so bad. So this is the monthly chart basically, and you can clearly see that currently it's sitting at the highest price ever since it launched. So it is decent, it is performing relatively decently compared to the TVL itself and compared to basically the volume that, according to DeFi Llama, is non-existent. So like I said, if you are a liquidity provider, you have to look deeper. If you come to the website itself and you go to the analytics page, all right, and you look at the volume to TVL ratio, because that's something super important for you as a liquidity provider. You want to understand for how much liquidity there is, the amount of volume, and if that outweighs the liquidity, means the ratio jumped above 1. And a rule of thumb, when the ratio is above 1, that's a good place to provide liquidity, because the fees acquired, which are usually somewhere between 0.1 and 0.2% on every trade, will be heavily decent when the volume to liquidity ratio is above 1. All right. And there are two pairs that have the most for the buck that you give them: ETH USDBC, ETH USDC, and I would add a third pair just to highlight the stable pair USDC USDBC. However, this one is heavily outlied, so you have days which the ratio is super high, and you have days where the ratio is non-existent. So it depends on the routing method, because essentially they have so many aggregators on their DEX. But the most consistent between quotation mark liquidity pair is ETH USDC and the subsequent ETH USDBC, because you have two versions of USDC currently sitting on base. And I'm going to show you a quick chart that I put together that shows you easily what's going on. I'm going to go here to Tableau. I'm going to quickly present this chart. So this is, simply put, the liquidity volume chart between how much liquidity there is in ETH USDBC and the volume that is subsequently happening. Like I said, if the volume is higher, then you are in good shape. And if you look at this, you have the liquidity column in orange, you have the volume column in red. And that's, by the way, a monthly map. So almost every day you have a higher volume compared to the liquidity, and you have days which the volume is much higher, almost 10 times higher than the liquidity. And those days are basically very good days for liquidity providers. Now, if you look at the last week, you can clearly see a nice uptrend in terms of volume, but liquidity is almost constant. Even though it's very low, the volume is slowly increasing, and therefore you're earning more. The second chart I want to show you is basically the earnings ratio compared to the liquidity. So earnings ratio is something I calculated based on the fees generated, plus, remember, if you stake your LP, you're gonna earn their token plus the vested version XSynth. However, XSynth can be redeemed, and after 2 weeks you get half of that redemption in liquid token. So I assumed that every person is doing this on a daily basis, so selling their synth, redeeming their XSynth, and then selling upon redemption. Based on this assumption, your earnings ratio is right there. You can clearly see that, and this is on a daily basis. So overall, this has been going on an average of 0.5 to 0.6% every single day on your liquidity. And that's freaking insane. And look at the last week. You had a huge spike. That's 2% in one single day. And that number has been steadily, on the upside of 0.5%, somewhere between 0.5 and 1%. And I can concur because I'm providing liquidity, and that's what I'm earning. Disregarding impermanent loss, ETH USDC, if you are a liquidity provider, this is a place that you should consider, not because of whatever the major platforms are showing you, but you should do more research. And that is one example of why you should be doing that, why you should look deeper into platforms and not just look at the superficial layer and then discard or keep going based on that. And that's it. They want to bring a Synthswap v2 update, but I'm not going to talk about this because for me that's not the content of this video, that's not the subject, nor is basically something that I'm really excited about or something that will make any difference. I'm a liquidity provider, I want the most for my buck, hence why I go wherever it makes sense to me. We have a Telegram community, link will be below, very interesting room, check it out, you won't regret it. And with that, see you in the next one, have a good one.